So most of the true monopolies today are what we would call regulated natural monopolies. And I should say now in the US. Little caveat there, right? And so how do we actually regulate these natural monopolies if they're regulated? And what actually is this natural monopoly thing, right? Let's go ahead and get that in our notes again here. Natural monopoly. A natural monopoly arises when the average total costs are declining over the whole range of production that satisfies market demand. So we talked about this before. This situation typically happens as a result of fixed cost being very large relative to variable costs. All right. Once again, thank you for your patience. And so the next part is regulatory choices when dealing with natural monopoly. So if we have some sort of average cost that's constantly declining, looks something like that. And if the average cost curve is constantly declining, then that means that my marginal cost curve is actually never going to touch it. So my marginal cost curve is going to look something like this. And then in order to figure out both my pricing decisions and my actual optimal allocation decision, I'm going to need to include both my demand curve and my marginal revenue curve. So we know from our optimal maximization of profits rule that we're going to find where marginal revenue crosses marginal cost. This is going to give us our profit maximizing quantity. Then we're going to go up to the demand curve, and that's going to give us the actual price. And so for this particular one, we're given a price of, so this particular point is called A in the book. And it is a point where there are 4 units being produced, and the price is $9.3. So this is where they will produce without any regulation. They'll produce an A. Now, if antitrust regulators split this company exactly in half, right, then that means that if this is 4, then regulators are going to split it in half. And so they're going to say, well, you guys need to produce 2. And so that's going to be somewhere at this point here where they're going to have 2 and at that same price. Now, what if the regulators required that the firm produce where the marginal cost equals the demand curve? So this is point B. What if they were to produce at point C? At point C, they would be producing 8 units, and they would be charging $3.5. And we see that that $3.5 is less than our average total cost, which is around $6. And so as a result, at this particular point, they would be making a loss. So that's not sustainable. So the most likely choice of where the regulators would actually have them produce would be this choice over here, point F, where we're at 6 and 6.5. And the reason why is because at this price, they are making an economic profit of 0, right? But it's also better than the underproduction if we let the monopolists price themselves, right? If they price themselves and create the quantity of their own, they're only going to sell 4 at 9.3 compared to selling 6 at 6.5. So in terms of an outcome for the consumers, this F outcome is definitely the best of all the outcomes, right? This is our winner in terms of the best outcome for consumers. So rather than just splitting it up in half, or rather than them pricing it at their marginal cost, we would have them price it where their average cost is so that they get 0 economic profit, but they can actually survive. All right, the rest of this chapter is just definitions, so please go through and read through them. If you have any questions, we'll talk about them quickly at the beginning of class on Monday. Let's go ahead and do our Kahoot.